tough act to follow. Wes Jensen, Omaha 68112, LD7. Thank you all first for being willing to listen to the people. I really appreciate that, as we are the second house to this body. What I want to talk about today, obviously there's numerous research that shows the social benefit to our students when they receive social emotional learning, from reducing behaviors in the classroom to helping address issues of absenteeism to making sure that they're able to graduate. But one thing that I have actually was just made aware of this morning and did a little research is the financial benefit of social emotional learning. And so there is, especially at the elementary level, you see a lot of benefit from it. And so I will be sure to email this to all of you, and including those members who are busy at the other non-public hearings. So, but just want to state it out so that everyone is aware that, and again, there's not as much research, but the research that has been developed in the last 5-7 years and continuing to be shows a huge economic impact and benefit to our community. So there was one instance in the Seattle Social Development Program. It realized that the economic value, or it came to realize that the economic evaluation estimated a return on investment that exceeded $2,500 per participant on outcomes, such as increased likelihood to graduate from high school, lower rates of initiating sexual activity, and less criminal activity among group participants. The Life Skill Project had another benefit. This low-cost intervention, roughly $3,400 per participant, delivered by teachers in middle classroom settings, addresses risk for substance use in adolescents, components of teaching self-management skills, social skills, and information. Oh, weird, that's just what SLE is, nothing more. And that return of investment was almost $1,300 per participating, representing over $37 return to participants and society per dollar invested. And then I do have some others. Oh, there's another one, $11 for every dollar toward intervention. And so it's a good economic benefit, and also all the other benefit it provides our students. And then another research shows a lot of benefits to programs that we have to spend on reading and math. At the elementary level, it saves a little over $100,000. Pro-social behaviors, $36,000. Concentration problems, $49,000. Truancy saves $30,000. Bullying behavior, $60,000. Aggressive, disruptive behavior, $70,000. Suspensions, $33,000. And at the high school level, it does drop, but I think that's why it's critical that we invest in it, especially at the early levels. But reading and math, $71,000. Truancy, $3,000. Suspensions, $11,000. Again at the secondary level. So there is many benefits to SEL, and I thank you all for being willing to hear that. And also, I know that you have been advocating and will continue to. So I encourage your colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Wes?
Yep.
So some of the data that you just shared, there's a clearinghouse that I've worked with since I was a freshman senator called the Hunt Institute. Are you familiar with that?
I am not.
I strongly recommend that you look into it based on what you just shared with us.
Yeah, will do. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Next. Did you fill out a sheet? You can
Yeah,
fill it
I left it in the box.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Okay, I'm happy to go grab it. Good afternoon. My name is Renee Jones. I'm a current educator with Lincoln Public Schools and the 2023 Nebraska Teacher of the Year. However, I'm here representing my personal views. All of this talk about social emotional learning got me thinking about, this isn't a new concept. Why is this all of a sudden being spread everywhere? And so I did a little digging and realized that the term social emotional learning was developed in 1994 as a way to support just this integral life skills and have students successfully navigate school and life. The term was coined as just a way to give a common language and understanding to something that's been happening since the 20th century. An example being the great philosopher John Dewey, and he was born in 1859. So I just got to thinking about what are some of the core concepts that I use personally in my life and as my role as an educator. Because I believe that social emotional learning is really comprehensive It's really integral to comprehensive education and focuses on developing students' emotional intelligence and interpersonal capabilities. And SEL is founded on these 5 core competencies, and these are kind of the ways that I use them. So self-awareness, the ability to recognize and understand your own personal emotions, values, strengths, and weaknesses. Self-management, the skills necessary for emotional control, stress management, goal setting, and then of course self-discipline. Social awareness, just the ability to understand others, including diverse cultures, backgrounds, and recognizing a variety of community resources and supports. Relationship skills, just that establishing and maintaining healthy relationships, managing conflicts, and effective communication. And then of course, responsible decision making, making constructive choices about personal behavior and social instructions based on ethical standards, safety considerations, and societal norms. Educators and schools personnel play an instrumental role in the successful integration of SEL in our classrooms. Our students spend a significant amount of time with teachers, and I think if we took a moment to pause, I imagine most of us, I certainly do, have the incredible experiencing of being able to name at least one teacher who had a significant impact on our own development. Educators are important mentors. I know that Ms. Berner, Mr. Musil, and Ms. Goodrich were 3 amazing educators that all played a huge significance in my role, in my personal development. Social emotional learning is vital classrooms due to its multifaceted benefits. It supports academic success by enhancing students' abilities to manage their emotions, stay organized, make responsible decisions. It bolsters emotional well-being by teaching students how to understand, express, and regulate their emotions, thereby reducing stress and promoting mental health. SEL also fosters essential social skills such as empathy, perspective, and relationship building, which enhances interpersonal relationships. By teaching impulse control and conflict resolution, SEL helps decrease classroom behavior, creating a more conducive learning environment. In the long term, SEL prepares students for challenges beyond the classroom, equipping them with critical life skills for success in higher education, careers, and personal relationships. Moreover, it promotes equity by fostering understanding and respect among diverse students, contributing to a more inclusive school environment. And I, of course, just want to say thank you for this opportunity, and then thank you to all educators who are there and getting ready for their school years to begin, and just support all kids.
Thank you. Next person. If you want to speak, there are forms when you walk in. If you wouldn't mind filling those out so we can have a written record of who speaks, that'd be great. And then you can hand them to Margaret. Or you can leave them in the box, we'll find them. That's fine too. Okay.
My name is Jess Parker. I live here in Lincoln. I'm a mom of 3. 2 of my kiddos are with me today in the back. They were certainly not brave enough when Ivan and Zoe were all here with me. I'm a parent ambassador, and I'm also an education advocate. I do a lot of work with Start Early and the Federal Office of Head Start, where I focus on inclusive policies. But today I'm here in my own capacity. I think there are much bigger issues within school systems that we should be worrying about, such as safety, for one. As long as my kids are having to routinely practice active shooter drills, I think everyone's kids should be able to learn things through a different lens other than their own. And I really feel like that our legislation, I mean, if this is getting moved forward, that everyone should really be listening to experts on SEL and not the guidance from a conservative hate group aligned senator. I also think that call-in testimony or virtual testimony should be allowed for all, not just for Senator Albright. Parents and caregivers already have the option to see curriculum, to give their input on curriculum, and to opt their child out of curriculum if it doesn't align with their beliefs. Decisions such as everything that was discussed in today's other hearing should be left up to local school districts to reflect on, not our politicians. And I feel like this is just a huge government overreach. I know we can't ask questions. So I guess generally speaking, has anyone taken the time to talk to students about SEL? I think it's important that all impacted voices are represented and heard when making large decisions such as these. And I guess I challenge you to think about, is SEL or CRT or anything like that a problem that's identified by parents? Or is that a problem that's identified by politicians to fit their right-wing agenda? So please listen to the teachers and listen to the parents and listen to the students. And I'm a parent and I oppose, 148, 147. Thank you.
Okay, next person? Anyone?
We're sitting back here. Do you wanna go?
Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be back from vacation and,
Is it?
it is, I feel rested and, my name is Abby Swadsworth. I'm speaking today. I'm with Out Nebraska. I am so impressed with our students and parents who've already spoken. I didn't prepare anything formal, but I do want to say I mirror a lot of what's been said in regard to the fact that SEL is being used as a catchphrase for culture war issues that some of our legislators want to push through rather than addressing the real issues facing students in today's schools. I would say that school safety and teacher overturn is both huge issues. I would say that the mental health of our students continues to decline and that our students continue to struggle, and that the learning that is undertaken as a part of social emotional learning is exactly the kind of learning that can help students address those issues. When we talk about student absenteeism, we also have to talk about students who do not attend school because they're being bullied. And I think that includes a lot of our Black, Brown, Indigenous students. It includes a lot of our LGBTQIA+ students. And that there really is no way to teach all students without teaching about those diverse cultures. And that in order to do that, really, we must examine ourselves as white people and what that means. That doesn't mean that we are discriminating, excluding, and indoctrinating people, as we heard DEI referred to in the other meeting today. It means that we are asking folks to be responsible citizens. And I think that is really what is at the core of what public schools can do and why this education can be so important. The fact that it has been politicized to the degree that it has is deeply disappointing, because I do believe the majority of senators would much rather focus on issues that really do concern schools and teachers and administrators, and I don't think this is one of those issues. And I would be happy to try to answer any questions to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
You've been here a lot this year.
Yes.
I'll leave with that. And so the question I have for you, based on what you've observed this year and based on what you just shared with us, why do you think we have so many bills that are really smoke and mirrors and about culture wars? What do you think the intent is?
Well, I think the intent often with that sort of legislation is, don't look at what's going on behind the curtain as we change funding for public schools. Don't look at what's going on behind the curtain as we make it easier to carry and conceal weapons. Don't look at what's going on behind the curtain here as we take away the rights of women to be autonomous people in our society. But instead, look at all the boogeymen that we have. I also would say that these bills are primarily generated out of one or two very conservative groups that in Nebraska, we can directly tie some of the parents' rights groups 2 groups that have been named as hate groups, 2 groups whose ministry is about erasing the existence of LGBTQ and especially transgender people in the world. And so I would say, really, things come late often to Nebraska. Many other states have been dealing with legislation such as this for the last several years. I think it took time for this ideology to take root and to be brought forward. Unfortunately, I expect we'll be fighting these battles quite a long time.
Do you feel it further polarizes us as a state?
I do, and I don't think that it is really what most Nebraskans value. I have found that Nebraskans really value being good neighbors, that we overall believe in fairness and kindness. I don't know that if we really talked deeply, that we disagree on a lot of these issues. I think everyone wants to protect children. We don't want your straight children to be gay. We want our gay children to grow up.
Thank you. Next. First.
I have copies if you want.
Oh, sure. I have like formals down here. Okay, Lacey Holsey with Nebraska AIDS Project. Good to see you all. Thank you for doing this. I have like a formal, if you want to read some stats, if you don't have enough already available. I want to zoom into the sexual health piece of what's going on. That seemed to be a lot of the questions that were going on, of what I could see of the not public hearing across the way. But we care about this because we know that comprehensive sexual health education prevents HIV. Nebraska students deserve to have access to safe, medically accurate, comprehensive sexual health education. In 2018, we saw that new HIV diagnoses were up, and particularly in young people. 21% of all those diagnoses were people under 24. HIV does not have a cure, so they will have that for the rest of their lives, under 24. Every professional health group says to have comprehensive sexual health education. CDC recommends it, it's evidence-based, all the stats prove that that is the way to go. It's not really questionable. The only other thing I guess to add, Nebraska is really struggling with sexually transmitted infection rates. In chlamydia, over 50% of all those cases are people under 24. So all the cases in Nebraska, it's young people. Gonorrhea, the highest group that folks are really struggling with are ages 20 to 24. Over 25% of all of those cases in the state of Nebraska is that really small age group, 20 to 24. And there was just an article released the other day about the preliminary data for Douglas County, who is kind of infamous for their STI rates. They are at 4,400 cases of chlamydia in 2022. Just last year, we hit 4,000. So we have jumped in 1 year to 400 more cases of chlamydia just in Douglas County. So we're not at a good place for our sexual health outcomes for our young people. So trying to limit any sort of education for them and resources for them is not in our best interest financially or for our health. Thank you. Thank you. Do you want this?
Yeah, if you please, sorry.
You don't have to pass it out, no, we'll get it. Okay. Next person. Anybody else? We're done? Oh,
Oh,
you're on.
I just wasn't planning on doing this, but here we are. Meetings no for me, already started.
You have 3 minutes.
Got 3 minutes, I need to say my name.
You can say your name, I know you
I'm
did.
Sarah Smallman. I'm a public school teacher, and I teach in OPS right now. I've also taught some other public schools. There's a lot of misinformation about social emotional learning going around, and even I just heard some claims that it's part of a liberal agenda. Some of the things on that liberal agenda that I would like for everyone to know about would be, let me just pull up a fun little graphic that I have. Self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills are all sort of the 5, pillars of social emotional learning. I did hear an inaccurate claim that this is how schools sort of use it as an avenue to introduce CRT into schools, which is also not true. But I just wanted to get on the record and talk about that. These are all things that as parents we're usually doing anyway. We're trying to teach our child how to manage their feelings, how to cope with the world, how to get along with other people, how to be responsible for themselves and have empathy for others. All of these things are extremely important in education, especially when it comes to emotions. I took a class this summer about how the brain learns, and they talked about how deeply connected emotions are to the learning process, and how positive emotions will deepen learning. It will create more retention and the ability to dive deeper into that learning process and enjoy learning. And the negative emotions will sort of have the opposite effect. And so ideally as an educator, we would want to create those positive environments in our classrooms. And one of those ways, as an educator, you can come in and you can be happy and calm and patient with your students, but they also need to learn those things for themselves and how to extend that to their own selves and to their peers. So we need this. It needs to be at every level. We think about it a lot with very small kids because they're kind of learning how to manage and be little humans, but also I teach high schoolers and they're in a moment where they're shaping an identity that is separate from their families and trying to figure out who they would like to be, and things like self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision making, all of that is critical for them to be able to become successful adults who transition out of high school and then go on to live a happy and fulfilling life here in Nebraska. And that's all from me.
Thank you, Sarah.
Sarah, I have a question for you. So, have you ever seen a copy of this little agenda? Like, is it on paper?
I'm trying to get my hands on it, and nobody will send it to me.
Have you seen it on social media? Like, am I missing the party where we're passing out these agendas?
I really don't think, I would invite you if I knew. I would invite you if I knew what those were. I am online kind of somewhat chronically, so I think I would come across it eventually. Maybe it's navigated over to Threads, I'm not really sure.
Do you feel left out that you're not being included in this little agenda that apparently other people know about?
A little bit, my feelings are hurt, just the tiniest bit.
Fair enough, thank you.
Okay, next person. And if you haven't, there's a sign in a form.
I'll grab one of those. I turned around and came in through the little dark room over there. I turned the light on so other people don't trip and fall. Anyway, I'm Gina, and I will get one of those forms in a minute. I am a former teacher, and I walked into the other room just in time to hear one of the current State Board of Education members in his personal capacity talk about the teacher shortage and why there's a teacher shortage. And what he said was very much false. I can tell you that the teacher shortage is because teachers don't get paid enough. Teachers are not respected by apparently the State Board of Education now, by some parents and by students, and that taking away social emotional learning is not going to help that in the least. And also, I like teaching because of people like him. So, I walked in to that, and I was like, I cannot stay in this room very much longer because it will not be good. So I also don't get the liberal agenda mailings. So I don't know why. But social emotional learning is definitely very helpful to my child, who is going into 3rd grade. learning how to handle those big emotions, how to work in a group, how to, you know, be kind to other people. As much as I try to teach it, hearing it from someone that's not mom is very helpful. So when they say, oh, parents should teach that, well, yes, we do, but also kids listen to other adults more. And they're a lot of times better behaved for those other adults. So that's, yeah, social emotional learning is not the boogeyman that they're trying to make it out to be in the end. Thank you for doing this because people should get to talk to their siblings.
Thank you. We'll have to find out what the teacher shortage is about.
I wasn't gonna talk today, but I decided, I'm a boomer's child, so I'm a Gen X child. So our social emotional learning, let's see, when I was in kindergarten, what I remember about kindergarten is, believe it or not, which was a long, long time
You
ago.
want to just state your name?
Oh, Michelle Bates, sorry. Michelle Bates, M-I-C-H-E-L-L-E,
You don't have to.
Bates, okay. And I have not been in elementary or kindergarten since I was, well, 46 years ago. So you all know how old I am now. And at that point in time, when you were, we had what we call Doug's hats. We put on stupid kids. We had rulers we got our hands hit with. We got put in corners. And then as I got older, I love my parents. They were very, very good parents, but they were boomers. And so Gen X kind of got forgotten. We kind of hung out by ourselves, took care of ourselves and such. And so our social learning was with each other. You know, we kind of learned together. That's not a good way to grow up. That's not a good way to learn. You ended up with some kids that were, you know, bullies. You ended up with some people in my generation who just are lost now as adults. And so social learning is important. It teaches you how to interact with others. So when I became an adult and went to work in the society after college, I was at a job and the owner was the owner of a long-term care company, owned nursing facilities. He actually had to do a training with supervisors, with nurses, with administrative about how to socially engage with your employees, how to have empathy, how to have kindness, how to work together, how to be a team. As adults, we were having to be taught that because that wasn't taught to us as we were younger, or it was not, I guess, it was not part of the curriculum like it is now. We shouldn't have to teach adults how to be socially acceptable and how to socially interact with other people. That should have been done when we were children, when we were in school. So you have to have that. You have to have it as an adult. You have to be able to engage with others without conflict, be able to have different opinions, be able to voice your opinion without criticizing another person. And so social learning is something, it's just common sense. It's just how you should raise your children and how you should be, and schools should also teach that also. So I guess I kind of want to give you an example of, I was one of those who didn't learn social acceptable manners, had to, but I did, my parents did, but not at school, but I did as an adult also too. So, and you have to have that to live and to be able to get along with others. If you can't get along with others, then, you know, you're gonna be awful lonely. So.
Thank you. Would somebody mind just shutting the door? Sorry, just the one right there. I realize I probably could have asked that like an hour ago. Anyone else wishing to speak? No? All right. Really? Last chance. There's a lot of people in here who haven't spoken yet.
I saw the hand.
I know, I'm like, don't want you to feel like you definitely don't have to, but also.
Guilt.
No.
Hi.
Hi.
Another one of those only intended to come and listen and provide support as a human being and bring my daughter, who will be a future teacher, in another year. She's maybe trying to be a teacher.
And what's your name?
And my name is Abby Burke, Dr. Abby Burke, not the kind for medical emergencies, the kind of researches stuff. So as I was driving here from Omaha, listening to Taylor Swift and bouncing back and forth between the other hearing, one of the things that I noticed happening was this sort of vilification of our current education system, the Nebraska Department of Education, the teachers, administrators, and that broke my heart as a lifelong educator.
to hear about the hard work that we're doing, that we eat, sleep, and breathe as an educator, Saturdays and Sundays. We live for those students. And so it really broke my heart that those folks are being vilified. And I noticed that it was really intentional and very strategic. Right now, it looks like we're talking about SEL, we're talking about CRT, but it's the way that it was spoken about and the way that I heard about it in the hearing was different. It's not about CRT, it's not about SEL, it's about the deprivatizing our education system, elevating the folks that are not experts in the field of education, allowing them to make decisions about what I know as somebody that has a doctorate in education. I have a body of knowledge that my husband doesn't have. He knows a lot about the nerve health sales industry. I don't give him input on that because I don't know about that. But I know a lot about education. And he turns to me when he says, hey, when we're at this parent-teacher conference, you know, what do you think about this? And I tell him, well, I know that when we're talking about reading that we need to use systematic, multisensory teaching in order to teach phonics instruction. And so he says, okay, well, then you can talk to the teacher about that. And you can have that collaborative conversation because I'm also an educator. So I want us to really think about why are we here? What is it really about? Is it about social emotional learning? Is it about CRT? And I forget what the third bullet. What's the other LR?
Comprehensive sex education.
Thank you. Thank you. Just as important as the others, but so I just want us to really think about, is that what it's really about, or what is it really about? Is it about taking away the expertise about education? I feel that's really a big piece of it. Is it about devaluing our public education system? Is it about supporting and taking tax money, tax credits from our general funds to be placed to support private schools where students can be discriminated against, things like that. So I think, you know, as we're talking about this, I think we sometimes need to take a higher look from the balcony and say, what is this really about? Because otherwise we might get stuck in this conversation about SEL or about sex ed or about critical race theory. Let's get and dig out into the why behind that. Why is that the boogeyman today? And that's, as I'm driving down here, of course I needed to take a break and listen to Swiftie and then come back because my blood got a little elevated. But I think we need to really dig in and think about that, about what it really is. And today these happen to be the three boogeymans.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you think it's about a fear or of being inferior or a decrease in white supremacy in the United States?
That's really big. You want to ask me about phonics? But I think about literacy and I think about education. It's about liberation. Liberation for all. It's about democracy. So yes, if we're taking away and controlling our education, we're taking away democracy. We're taking away liberation for all. So in a way, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi. My name is Carol Dix, and just to say, yeah, so it's all about privatizing almost everything. It's about deregulating almost everything in a very methodical way. Republican incrementalism has kicked our butts. But it's also about hate, whether real or a tool from a policymaker. And it's about hate that's been part of our country from the beginning, before the beginning. And so it's used, and it's so horrible that it's being used. So we need to speak up. We need to be like strategic, long-term, short-term, you know that, but asking you guys to mobilize us, please, in that process. Because 2024 is gonna be very important, but our 2023 elections were very important, and every day of this legislature, and this is being mimicked in different ways across the country in red states and supermajority and majority. But a lot of people are too busy and too distracted to know about it, so we've gotta have hard conversations with our neighbors, our pharmacists, the grocery clerk, family, friends, everybody. So, thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on.
Hello, my name is Sally Shepherd, and I was a public school teacher for 29 years. I have been, I'm starting my second year of substituting now. And I just wanted to say, teachers get accused of a lot of things. And if we could really indoctrinate students, every teacher would indoctrinate them to show up every day to class, be prepared, have your homework done, engage in the discussion, and do your own work. That's what we want from our students. Were there a couple times I did some grooming? Probably, when I had a very delicate conversation with a student or two about the use of deodorant and maybe showering regularly. That's it. That's what we do. We're not here to harm anybody. We're here to help kids find their voices. And kind of on an unrelated note, I tell my students all the time, when I retired, they said, how can you leave us? And I said, guys, if I could just stay in the classroom with you every day and that's all I had to do, I would have never left teaching. I loved it so much. It was the best part of my life, other than my son. We have, I taught at Westside High School, and we had large groups there, which is like a college lecture class. So the first day in our freshman health class, after we got everybody seated and went over what we're gonna cover, and if you have questions about what we cover, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. I said, we're gonna have a little discussion here. You have to raise your hand, you have to have a point, and you cannot shout at anyone down. You cannot use negative words to refute someone else's point. I said, okay. I said, is a hot dog a sandwich? That was the discussion, and you should have seen these kids. I almost cried. It was beautiful. They raised their hands, they were passionate about their points, they refuted arguments, but never once did they call anybody stupid or dumb or have any negative thing to say. And it was beautiful to watch these kids have this discussion. I finally stopped them. I said, do you know what you guys are doing right now? And they're like, we're talking. And I said, you're having civil discourse. If the United States representatives and Congress, it could see this, it would be amazing. And it just proved to me again, it's not the kids that get it wrong, it's the adults. The kids are fine, it's the adults that screw things up. So I just wanted to say that.
I appreciate your humor. I always love a good joke. So, but I want to get serious for a second because of your experience. So I noted that, and I hate to be a downer, but the suicide rates amongst teachers has actually gone up substantially. And I have two questions. In your personal opinion, because you didn't know I was going to ask this question, I don't expect you to have data and facts here. I'm actually asking your opinion. Would you say that the mental health of our teachers is at a level where it's become more concerning?
Yes.
And do you feel that you're getting the appropriate help for that concern right now?
I've never struggled with mental health issues until we came back from COVID. And I had a student, I love this kid, and he was a teeny tiny thing, and he loved football more than anything in the world. And his white football gloves never got dirty, because even in freshman B games, he barely got in. But every Monday, we would talk about Monday Night Football, we'd bet on the games, it was just win or lose, we weren't betting money or anything. And one day in the alcohol unit, he kind of hung around after class, and I said, what can I do for you? And he goes, well, you know, we're talking about alcohol, and my dad's an alcoholic, and my stepmom owns a bar and makes it hard. And I'm just like, I didn't know what to say to him, you know? And I thought about that day driving home, and I just started bawling on the way home, and I'm like, why can't kids just have a normal childhood? Doesn't have to be great, doesn't have to be special. Why can't it just be normal? And that was the hardest thing for me. Dealing with all the COVID, and I was tired and stressed, and then this came out of the blue. Kids will tell you things out of the blue, and you're just not even prepared for that. And my son is a police officer, and we talk about all the time how we are not prepared and we're not trained to deal with all the mental health issues that we deal with, and it weighs on us as well. Like, if I could have taken Les home to live with me, I would have, because that poor kid doesn't deserve to go through that. In 29 years, I never filed CPS report until my last year, and I filed 3. 2 girls came to me to report a sexual assault, 2 separate girls came to me to report that, another student reported me that his parents were abusive to him. And you have so much weighing on you, and it's just so hard. Now, my district has been fantastic about that, about providing support for teachers, about if you need a mental health day, you take one. But I think, and when I talk to younger teachers, they really struggle with it. And so it is harder, but I think school boards and I think admin understands that, and they've been through it too, because I check in with my admin. Are you guys doing okay today? How are you today? You know, because they struggle as well. But it is a lot different. Things that, kids will tell me things that I never saw. I was at a football game, working a football game one night on the chain gang, and this kid I had in class, he was doing photography, and we're just standing there talking, and he said, your son's a police officer, right? And I said, yeah, he is. And he said, my dad was too. And I said, oh, what's he doing now? And he goes, he died. He committed suicide. And I'm like, and then the ball moved, and I had to go running away from this kid. And I'm like, oh my God, it's a Friday night. And now, so I talked to his mom about it. She said he's never told another teacher that. And I'm like, they unload things on you when you just least expect it. And that's just really hard for teachers sometimes.
I appreciate your honesty, thank you.
Thanks. I got to work with your daughter, and she's wonderful.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi,
Hi,
how are you 3?
great.
Just left the other one. My name is Molly Davies, born Mary Davies, Marydavies. Do I have to do all that?
You don't.
But you did, so I'm habituated.
Yeah.
I didn't prepare anything. I just spent the last couple hours in the other hearing, and I think what I'd like to say is how misguided I think what is going on is. I just have heard so many falsehoods and just like falsely represented things. I just heard a woman represent our second step counseling curriculum. It's a counseling curriculum taught by certified school counselors. And it's in use in many of the Nebraska districts. I think that my district is moving to a new one, but it's a good curriculum, and the objection was that a 7th grade boy was taught about consent. That's an objection. That we're teaching 7th grade boys about consent, that's hurting her son. I don't even know what to say anymore. In my role as a educator, I'm a public school educator, I'm a public school parent, and I'm a migrant and refugee educator. So I'm gonna speak from that lens. I couldn't function without social emotional learning. I wouldn't say most of the students that come to me have trauma. I would say almost all of the students that come to me have trauma. And so the ability to process what they're experiencing when they come to the United States, but also what they experience because of Nebraska sometimes. I know that we have all read the articles about the abuse of youth, especially migrant youth, in the agricultural sector and in fast food. That is happening in the state of Nebraska. I have reported that to the U.S. Department of Labor. The reality that so many of our kids are trafficked into the states that they end up into, where they're living with somebody who is identified as an auntie or an uncle, but it's not an auntie or an uncle, and they're working off a debt. When they're early in the United States, I have kids that are in school all day and that are working from 4 o'clock until midnight, and then they show up the next morning at 7:35, and they're expected to be ready to learn. And we need to take care of them. We need every resource that we can possibly access for that, and social emotional learning is one of the top ways that we can get there. The misrepresentation of social emotional learning as CRT, or the equation of CRT and culturally responsive pedagogy, is just absolutely a recharacterization and a mischaracterization that is detrimental to our students of color. And really all of our students, because if white kids don't understand reality, and if white kids don't have the capacity to manage their own emotions and to identify the reality of our history, then they are also incapacitated. Everybody deserves access to a good curriculum. And the last thing I want to say is there is a piece of this that just befuddles me, which is we know, because there's lots of educational research that shows this, we know that a good SEL and a social studies curriculum that actually teaches the truth about American history is one of the things that supports greater academic access for students of color. We are in the middle of a fight in this state to decide whether or not we're going to spend money from our general fund on scholarships, and much of the justification for that fight is that we need to serve students of color better. The same people who are advancing that are often the same people who are saying that we shouldn't be teaching this. And those two things don't go together. So either there's a future danger that we have to be looking out for, or there is a complete hypocrisy that is on the table right now. And one of those two things has to be true. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any questions? You know, one thing that you can do to impact social emotional learning legislation is to
Oh my God, I knew you were going to say that.
run forward.
Yes, Molly.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I had to get it in, Molly.
Yeah.
Anyone else wishing to speak today? Okay, I think that's gonna then conclude it. So thank you all. Thanks so much for your time and attention.
Go back down to space.